Less than an hour before she was killed, Samuels wrote on her Facebook page that her ex-boyfriend had threatened her family, damaged her car, and she posted a video that she says shows him hitting her several times. Samuels' family says she had dated the man for a few months before she broke up with him.
You in there now? She finna fall back over.
Thanks for the help, guys.
You got it?
Mariah Samuels posted this footage herself. She showed the world what David Wright was doing to her. This wasn't a private matter anymore. This was public evidence of assault. And less than 1 hour before her murder, she posted again, telling everyone that the police weren't helping, that the protection order meant nothing, that David Wright was still stalking her. At 7:50 a.m. on September 15, 2025, he shot her 15 times in her own driveway. The man in this video had already done 15 years in prison. He violated Mariah's restraining order repeatedly, and every time, the police would show up, document, and leave. Mariah had video proof. She had witnesses. She had a protection order. She had everything you're supposed to have to get help. Why did the police see this and not arrest him? And what good is evidence if nobody acts on it? September 15th, 2025, a Sunday morning that should have been ordinary. Mariah Samuels was 34 years old, born on January 23rd, 1991, right here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. She was a dog groomer who had worked at Petco for 7 years. Every morning, she showed up before the store opened, setting up her station, preparing to work with animals that other groomers couldn't handle.
She loves animals. She loved her son. She was sweet. She was outgoing. She was free-spirited. We loved each other. She's my everything.
Mariah had a special gift. Her co-worker, Jasmine Brown, said the most aggressive dogs would calm down instantly in her hands. There was something about her presence that made animals trust her. But Mariah was more than her job. She was a traveler. Her Instagram showed a woman with a radiant smile exploring the world. Thailand, Mexico, Jamaica. She told friends she was saving money to take her 2 boys on their own adventures one day. Show them that life was bigger than Minneapolis. Those boys were everything to her. Her oldest was 18, talking about college applications. Her youngest was 11, still needing help with homework every night. As a single mother working multiple jobs, Mariah fought hard to give them stability. She owned a modest home on Russell Avenue North, a place she worked years to afford. A place that should have been safe. She had just celebrated her 34th birthday on August 30th, 2025. 16 days later, she would be dead. Mariah Samuels met David Eugene Wright. Nobody knows exactly how they crossed paths. Some say through mutual friends. Others say it was by chance. What matters is that by May, they were dating. David Wright was 50 years old, 16 years older than Mariah, and he had just gotten out of prison after serving 15 years on drug possession charges. His federal identification number was 5891041. He'd carried it since 2006 when the District Court of Minnesota convicted him. That conviction put him in the federal system, the one that should have meant closer monitoring, stricter supervision, more oversight. But Wright told Mariah he was a changed man. He talked about second chances, about learning from his mistakes. He had a job. He dressed well. He knew how to make her laugh. For a single mother juggling work and children, he seemed stable, mature, safe. He offered to help with errands. He showed interest in her boys' activities. He brought flowers to her workplace. Mariah's friends remember those early days. She seemed happy. She would talk about David during breaks at work, show pictures of them together on social media. But by June, things started changing. Mariah stopped posting on social media as much. During gatherings with friends, her phone would ring constantly. She would step away to answer, coming back with forced smiles that didn't reach her eyes. Jasmine Brown remembered one incident at a co-worker's barbecue. Mariah's phone rang 17 times in 1 hour. 17. She finally turned it off, and Jasmine saw her hands shaking. David Wright had memorized Mariah's schedule down to the minute. Petco opened at 9. He knew she arrived at 8:15. Her youngest son's school released at 3:20. Wright would drive by at 3:25, like clockwork. Tuesday nights were grocery runs. Thursday evenings, she visited her sister Simone. He tracked everything. By July, Wright started appearing at places without invitation. Mariah would mention meeting her Aunt Carolyn for lunch, and Wright would already be at the restaurant when they arrived. He called it romance, devotion, proof of his love. But his eyes would scan every man who walked past their table, every waiter who smiled too long. Mariah finally had enough. She pulled away, created distance. She grew tired of the constant surveillance, the endless phone calls, the possessive behavior that made her feel like property instead of a person. She ended the relationship. Clean break. No room for negotiation. That's when David Wright showed her who he really was. August 26th, 2025. Mariah was on the phone with her best friend when Wright appeared at her back door. Not knocking, just standing there, staring through the glass. When she didn't let him in, he started circling the house, testing windows, rattling doorknobs. Mariah's friend heard everything through the phone. She heard Mariah telling Wright to leave, heard his voice getting louder, more aggressive. Then she heard the moment Wright found an unlocked window. The friend called 911 while listening to Mariah scream. Wright grabbed Mariah's phone and tried to destroy it. When she fought back, he struck her with his pistol. Multiple blows to her head, leaving knots and scratches. Bruises formed on her collarbone where he grabbed her. Her legs bore marks from being dragged across the floor. Wright fled before police arrived. Officers came. They took photos, documented injuries, wrote reports. Mariah filed for an order of protection that same day. The court granted it immediately. Standard procedure for cases involving weapons and violence. August 29th, 2025. David Wright was served with the protection order. The document was explicit. No contact with Mariah Samuels or her 11-year-old son. Stay away from her home, workplace, and children's schools. No phone calls, texts, emails, or messages through third parties. Violation would result in immediate arrest. Mariah blocked him on every social media platform except Facebook. For 2 weeks, Wright appeared to comply. Mariah started breathing again. She went back to work. She celebrated her birthday quietly with family. She started feeling safe enough to walk to her car without checking over her shoulder. The system seemed to be working, but it wasn't. August 30th, Mariah's 34th birthday. Wright showed up at her house with presents, jewelry, perfume, clothes, all still wrapped like nothing had happened, like he hadn't broken into her house and attacked her with a pistol just 4 days earlier. Mariah wouldn't open the door. Through the glass, she told him to leave. He refused. For 3 hours, he sat on her front steps, occasionally calling out reminders of their good times together, making promises to change, declaring his love in words that sounded less like affection and more like ownership with each repetition. Mariah stayed inside, locked in her own home, and she didn't call the police. People ask why. Why not call during those 3 hours? Why give him that time? Maybe she was scared it would make things worse. Maybe she thought he would eventually leave. Maybe she was just tired of calling the police over and over again, only for them to show up, document, and do nothing. September 12th, 2025. A text appeared on Mariah's phone. I'm sorry. I still have things that I had for your BD. I hate that you won't accept them. But anyways, I'll chill. One last question. Why haven't you blocked me on here? I'll never be able to do it. I love you, Mariah, and I'm truly sorry for the hurt IR caused you. You'll regret that night the rest of my life. I'm sorry for this, but I miss you, Mariah. Nah, F that, I just miss you. Wright was violating the protection order. Again, using a different number to get around being blocked. Mariah screenshot the messages, saved them to show police later. She didn't respond, but she couldn't stay silent anymore. The weight of everything, the assault, the fear, the anger, it all demanded release. Mariah opened Facebook and typed, I can't stand a human being who can't take accountability for their actions. Hit, punch, slap, push, shove, whatever you want to call it. No man can call himself a man after putting their hands on a woman physically in any shape or form. Replace the word man with coward. Or should I say, is just really illiterate in real life. Now that's a damn shame. 90 minutes later, she posted again, this time with evidence. Security camera footage from her home showing David Wright attacking her outside. The video was clear, undeniable proof of violence. Mariah wanted the world to see who David Wright really was. Thousands of people saw that video. Her family saw it, her friends saw it, the police saw it, and it didn't matter. September 14th, 2025. 4 a.m. Mariah saw him on her security cameras. David Wright walking around her property, checking her car, peering through her windows. She called the police, reported the violation, described his location. By the time officers arrived, Wright had vanished into the pre-dawn darkness. Frustrated, exhausted, terrified, Mariah grabbed her phone and typed what would become her final message to the world. I was trying to stay silent, but stalking me at 4 in the morning, and the police ain't doing anything besides serve him a protective order. And clearly, it's not doing anything. In less than 4 hours, those would be the last words Mariah Samuels would ever write. The protection order, that official document meant to shield her from harm, remained in effect. It would outlive her by 3 hours and 57 minutes. September 15th, 2025, 7:45 a.m. Multiple witnesses would later describe seeing a man on a bicycle moving slowly down Russell Avenue North. He wore dark clothing, kept his head down, pedaled with unusual determination for someone on a casual morning ride. The bicycle had been stolen hours earlier from a yard 6 blocks away. David Wright chose it specifically because it would be silent, wouldn't require parking, could navigate narrow spaces between houses. He abandoned the bicycle in an alley behind Mariah's house and moved on foot toward her driveway. 7:50 a.m. Mariah Samuels sat in her Jeep Cherokee, keys in the ignition, preparing to reverse out of her driveway and head to work at Petco. She may have been checking her mirrors. She may have been adjusting the radio. She may have seen Wright approaching and tried to lock her doors. What happened in those final seconds remains known only to Wright himself. The first shot shattered the driver's side window. Then came the second, the third, the fourth. Wright moved methodically around the vehicle, firing through the driver's door, then stepping to the passenger side, continuing his attack. The gunshots came so fast that neighbors initially thought they were hearing firecrackers, a terrible rhythm that lasted less than 30 seconds. One neighbor watched from their kitchen window. They saw Wright try to pull Mariah's body from the vehicle. Whether to confirm she was dead or for some other reason, he struggled with her weight, her position, the reality of what he had just done. Then he looked around like he suddenly remembered where he was, and he ran. The first 911 call came from a resident 3 houses down. Within seconds, multiple calls flooded the emergency dispatch center. Officers arrived to find Mariah Samuels slumped in her driver's seat. Her body had been struck multiple times. Paramedics arrived within minutes, but their assessment was swift and devastating. Mariah Rosanna Samuels was pronounced dead at the scene. She never made it out of her driveway, never made it to work, never made it to see her boys again. The crime scene told its own violent story. 15 bullet holes in the Jeep Cherokee, 7 on the driver's side door, 5 through the driver's window, 3 on the passenger side. The pattern revealed Wright's movement around the vehicle, what prosecutors would later call a deliberate execution designed to ensure death from multiple angles. The abandoned bicycle became crucial evidence. Found leaning against a garage 2 blocks away, it carried Wright's fingerprints on the handlebars and seat post. Wright had planned even this detail, choosing transportation that wouldn't link back to him, that could be discarded without consequence. David Wright was hunting her, and everyone knew it. The manhunt began immediately. Every patrol car in Minnesota carried Wright's photo. Every officer knew his name. But Wright wasn't just a local problem anymore. His federal probation status triggered automatic involvement from the U.S. Marshals Service. They brought resources Minneapolis couldn't match: facial recognition systems, interstate coordination, access to federal databases showing Wright's complete criminal history across state lines. Wright was taken into custody. The details of his arrest remain limited, but what matters is this: The man who had spent 15 years in prison was now back behind bars, this time for murder. Within 48 hours of Wright's arrest, formal charges were filed: second-degree murder and illegal firearm possession. At Wright's first appearance, Magistrate Judge Patricia Kelly set bail at $1 million. Wright's federal probation was automatically revoked. The murder charge alone guaranteed he would return to federal prison, regardless of the state case outcome. But here's what should haunt everyone. Wright's probation officer had supervised him for 2 years after his release. And during that time, they never conducted a home visit, never verified his employment, never followed up on the protection orders filed against him. The system had all the warning signs, and they ignored every single one. David Wright had a history. In 2020, a woman filed for a protection order against him. The court granted her request. Wright stayed away for a while. 2 years later, in 2022, a different woman filed another protection order at the same courthouse. This petition contained details that should have set off every alarm in the system. The Federal Probation Office had Wright's file. They knew about the protection orders. They knew about the gun violation that kept him under supervision. Both women from 2020 and 2022 survived their encounters with David Wright. They moved, changed their phone numbers, lived in fear, looked over their shoulders for years. They were the warnings the system failed to read. They were the pattern that should have predicted what would happen to Mariah Samuels. But nobody connected the dots. Nobody saw David Wright for what he really was. Man who viewed women as property, who couldn't accept rejection, who would rather see them dead than see them free. And here's what makes this case even more devastating. The August 26th assault, the one where Wright broke into Mariah's house and attacked her with a pistol, the one that led to the protection order. Police had documented everything. They took photos of Mariah's injuries. They wrote detailed reports. They had evidence, but that case was never forwarded to the county attorney's office for prosecution. It sat in administrative limbo while David Wright remained free. Police later said Mariah didn't want to pursue criminal charges after the assault. But how does that make sense? How does someone who filed for a protection order, who posted video evidence online, who repeatedly called police, not want prosecution? The disconnect between police records and Mariah's documented actions raises questions that haunt this investigation. Because if Mariah had wanted prosecution, if that case had moved forward, David Wright would have been in jail on August 26th. He would have been in jail on her birthday when he sat on her porch for 3 hours. He would have been in jail on September 14th when he stalked her at 4 a.m. He would have been in jail on September 15th when he murdered her. Mariah Samuels would still be alive. 5 days after Mariah's murder, 150 people gathered outside 1409 Russell Avenue North. They came carrying signs, wearing purple, Mariah's favorite color. Fresh flowers covered the bloodstains that rain hadn't washed away. Mariah's family stood in that driveway and told the world what everyone needed to hear. Mariah had done everything right. She called police. She filed reports. She got the protection order. She documented Wright's violations. She posted evidence online when the system failed her. And she's dead. If doing everything right doesn't keep you alive, what are we telling survivors? In 2024, Minnesota issued roughly 15,000 protection orders. Violations occurred in approximately 40% of cases. Arrests for violations happened in less than 10% of reported incidents. Let that sink in. Most protection order violations resulted in no consequences for perpetrators. In 2024, Minnesota saw 18 domestic violence deaths. In 17 of those cases, there were prior police reports. In 12, protection orders existed. Mariah Samuels doesn't represent an anomaly. She represents the norm. The system isn't designed to protect women. It's designed to document their abuse. And documentation doesn't stop bullets. Mariah will be the 4th woman in her family murdered by someone who claimed to love them. 4 women, 1 family, all killed by men they tried to escape. What does that say? What kind of pattern is that? Her boys are now without their mother. Her oldest, at 18, preparing for college without the woman who pushed him to dream bigger. Her youngest, at 11, facing middle school without the woman who helped him with homework every night. They will grow up knowing their mother did everything right, and it still wasn't enough. They will grow up knowing the system failed her. David Wright is awaiting trial. He faces life in prison, but Mariah is gone, and no sentence will bring her back. Here's what we need to understand. Protection orders are not protection. They're paperwork. They document abuse. They create legal records. They establish patterns of behavior, but they don't stop abusers. David Wright had a protection order against him. He violated it repeatedly, showed up at Mariah's house, sent her messages, stalked her in the middle of the night. And every time the police showed up, wrote a report, and left. No arrest, no consequences, no protection. Mariah posted that final message at 4 a.m. on September 14th. She told the world the protection order wasn't doing anything. She begged for help. 3.5 hours later, she was dead. The system had one job: protect Mariah Samuels. Keep her safe from a man who had already attacked her, who had already violated court orders, who had already shown he was dangerous. And the system failed, not because of one person, not because of one mistake, but because the entire system is broken. It's designed to react after violence happens, not prevent it before someone dies. It's designed to give women pieces of paper and tell them they're protected. And then we act surprised when those women end up dead. Mariah Samuels did everything the system told her to do. She called the police when David Wright broke into her house. She filed for the protection order. She documented every violation. She posted video evidence showing the world who he was. She begged for help. And on September 15th, 2025, at 7:50 in the morning, David Wright shot her 15 times in her own driveway. The protection order was still in effect. It meant nothing. What do you think? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this story important, please like, share, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. Remember her name, Mariah Samuels, not just as a victim, but as proof that doing everything right isn't enough. When the system itself is broken,